Hey guys, welcome back to Motorcycle Cannonball Week here at Drive for History. We're in the main gallery here at Wheels Through Time, smack dab in the middle of the Motorcycle Cannonball exhibit. The exhibit opened last October. It's been a big visitor favorite. Over a dozen Cannonball proven machines right here inside the exhibit. Some incredible artwork and photography. David Ewell, Mike Lichter, Paul DeOrland's wet plates. Just a really incredible exhibit. Make sure you guys check it out when you come to Wheels. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the Motorcycle Cannonball, it all started 100+ years ago with this guy, Irwin Cannonball Baker. Irwin Cannonball Baker was actually an early endurance competitor, set transcontinental records through most of his life, actually did over 1 million miles of endurance competition. So we've got some incredible artwork from Cannonball's very first run, San Diego to New York in 11 days and 12 hours. Pretty incredible stuff. The posters y'all are looking at right now, original 100+-year-old paper, really tells where Cannonball got his name. So today, inside the exhibit, we're highlighting some really special bikes to all of us here at Wheels Through Time. My dad and Wayne Stanfield's 1915 Cannonball Machines. So these bikes were actually run in the initial Motorcycle Cannonball 2010. Now, the Cannonball was started, or the Motorcycle Cannonball was started in 2010 by a good friend of ours, Lonnie Isom Jr., really a way to get early American motorcycles back on the road. So Lonnie had a grand vision to gather up a bunch of his best buddies and ride old bikes across the country. Started out with pre-1916 motorcycles. So if you can imagine, 2010, jumping on a bunch of 95-year-old equipment, nobody really knew what they were in for. My dad and Wayne piloted these two machines on the 3,200-mile run. It was actually 3,294 miles from Kitty Hawk to Santa Monica. Now, the two bikes in front of us, very special bikes and actually milestone bikes along the Harley-Davidson timeline, 1915 Harley-Davidson twins. Both of these bikes are model 11Fs. F was the magneto ignition twin-cylinder 3-speed machine. So in 1915, Harley-Davidson really stepped up their game, transform the motorcycling world altogether, and I'll tell you some of those features of these individual bikes that set them apart from their competitors. Now, 1914, Harley-Davidson used kind of a primitive lower end assembly, 7/8 inch crank pin, small little tiny connecting rods. In 1915, Harley-Davidson went on to beefing up their engine. So heavier duty cases, heavier duty flywheels, bigger crank pin, longer rods, gave the engine considerably more torque, beat down the road much, much better. Now, the big revolutionary part of the 1915 Harley-Davidson was the 3-speed transmission. Early on, you're dealing with belt drive motorcycles, single-speed chain drive bikes. Clutch was adapted and pretty much standard equipment on most machines at this time. Now, Harley-Davidson in 1914 debuted the 2-speed rear end. Shifting gears really changed the game as far as versatility goes. Kind of a troublesome setup. It was all done right in the rear hub for 1915. Harley-Davidson, actually, along with Indian and Excelsior, debuted their 3-speed transmissions. So all of a sudden made a bike that created plenty of power, much, much, much more versatile. Believe it or not, these bikes will beat down the road 55, even 60 miles an hour today. So really incredible stuff. Now, the two bikes that we're looking at, this one here was my dad's machine. Absolutely incredible bike. The bike was sold brand new in Hickory, North Carolina in 1915. And really, when the bike came here to Wheels Through Time, it was probably the farthest that the motorcycle had ever been from its initial home. So now the bike, as you can tell, unrestored condition. It's got the original 1915 frame, 1915 model 11F engine. So this is your magneto setup, all new cylinders, new cases, new everything for 1915, so it resembled the 14 stuff very, very closely, but the bike in its entirety, from the frame, the fork, the engine, the transmission, it was all very, very different than the previous year. So this machine has been updated with some slightly more modern components to make the bike that much more capable of a coast-to-coast run. So one of the things this bike actually came to us with was the slightly later gas tanks. These are 1916, 17 Harley-Davidson gas tanks, a little bit more rounded than the flat tank style. Now, 1909 all the way through 1915 is what we call flat tank Harley-Davidsons. Wayne's bike right here, initial flat tank, or early original flat tank, 1915, 1 year only gas tank. So really incredible stuff. Now Wayne's bike is actually set up with the original 1915 transmissions. 1915 was kind of a 1 year only setup. They really had not figured out the kickstart mechanism yet. So early on, most of these motorcycles are pedal start bikes. You roll the back, the spark advance, and it actuates the decompressor, lifts the exhaust valves. You pedal that thing up to speed, or while it's on the rear stand, you pedal it up to some amount of speed, get those flywheels spinning, drop the compression release, and they usually fire right off. 1915, they actually retain the pedals. So if you look over here on the other side, Steve, you've still got a pedal crank assembly. So you can back pedal. I'll pop this stand down so you can see. So you got full pedals all the way around. Now in 15, you don't have to jump on this bike and actually pedal it up. You can give it what we call a step start. So much more versatile, but still a little bit troublesome. The 15 transmissions oftentimes were replaced over the years. So very same thing on this motorcycle. Transmission was replaced really for practicality reasons. So right here in 1916, you can see they've got the whole new transmission. This is a 1916 style trans, and they basically took that step start assembly and deleted it, and then moved the kicker back to where the idler gear was, and now you've got an actual kickstart motorcycle. Considerably easy to operate while you're on the bike. Those 15s, if you kill the bike or if it dies, you kind of got to pop it up all the way on the rear stand, climb off of the bike, give it that forward step start, and start the whole process again. This bike, you can actually start it while you're sitting on it. So pretty neat setup. Now, a couple other updates. The front brakes. This is actually a Honda front brake. Don't tell anybody. It's not an American motorcycle part. But when you're taking a bike like this, modern traffic, modern roads, high speeds, 55, 60 miles an hour for duration, the front brake is an invaluable component to have on an endurance run like this. So my dad updated the 1915 Harley with it's like a 350 Honda brake. It's tough to find a brake that fits this skinny little front end. The Honda brakes end up working real well. Pretty common upgrade for most of your motorcycle Cannonball riders. Same thing on Wayne's machine, upgraded brake, really made for a much safer ride. So Wayne's bike has the route sheet. So my dad kind of hitched along with Wayne. Wayne, remember, Wayne and my dad have been doing endurance runs and all sorts of competitions for decades and decades. So Wayne and my dad teamed up for the Great American Car Race, 1995 and 96, Tacoma to Toronto, and Ottawa to Mexico City. They actually placed second and fourth. Wayne is a rally endurance champ. He's won the Great Race 5 times. He's the guy you want to follow down the road on the motorcycle Cannonball. So as you can see, here's that early route sheet. Wayne and my dad followed this thing to a T. Actually did perfect mileage on Wayne's bike. So Wayne, 3,294 miles, ended up 7th place overall. Remember, perfect score. The tiebreaker comes down to the earliest bike, and after the earliest bike, it goes to the oldest rider. So Wayne was in class 3 with my dad, twin cylinder, multi-speed. I think Wayne placed second in class. There was one rider older than Wayne was. Now my dad actually came up 2 miles short, middle of Arizona. He's stuck in traffic about 2 miles from the end of the day, and 105-degree heat. He ended up seizing up the motor sitting there in traffic. Walked it the last 2 miles in, but they didn't quite give him the perfect score for the day. So ended up 2 miles short. He was 11th place overall. So when you end up freezing up a motor, Motorcycle Cannonball, it's a really unique event, 16-day road run. So you make it to the end of the day, and you're able to do whatever you need to do to get that bike ready for the next day. So out the engine came, took it apart, rebuilt the lower end with a new crankshaft, put it all back together, slapped the same motor back in, and on for the rest of the run he went, completed all the rest of the miles. So pretty incredible stuff. Now you guys see the extra big Super Glide style gas tank. About 50 years removed these tanks were from these machines, initial production, but much easier setup to run a gas tank like this. Heck, the original flat tank gas tanks you can't even fit a fuel nozzle into at the gas station. So pretty neat setup. Extra saddlebags for tools, custom exhaust, but for the most part, the bike is a true surviving 1915 Harley Davidson. So we're gonna get this thing cranked up for you. You guys can hear what it sounds like. It runs as good as the day that it left, and hopefully 1-2 kicks and we'll be running like new. All right. Push rod's working, pocket valve engine, the intake valve opens down, exhaust valves are underneath the lifter covers here. Anytime you put 3,200 plus miles on a motorcycle, you develop this closeness and a relationship with it. I know my dad was incredibly fond of this bike, had some memories that lasted a lifetime, and just one special machine. We're proud to have both of them on display here at Wheels in the Cannonball exhibit. Thanks for tuning in. We got more great Cannonball stuff coming to you later this week. Make sure you check out driveforhistory.com. Support the museum today. Remember, you guys are the ones that keep us running.